Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls across the world, we are back with I said another podcast, another recruiting podcast. Chris Mason and myself, Chris Mason being with Students 360 and myself being with Horns Down Podcast. People like, subscribe, do all those different things, but definitely subscribe, click that notification bell because we've been doing these videos for the last week and a half, just bumping them out as as necessary, right? Shout out to Jason, Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. We are broadcasting on all three channels, so definitely like the video on all three channels and subscribe to all three channels if you haven't. Definitely trying to get those numbers up. Shout out to our sponsor, Kaizen Performance here in Norman. Definitely go check that gym out if you got a chance. Chris Mason, how are you doing?
I'm doing much better today. This is a good day.
It's a great day. It's a great day. Look, everybody's getting active in the portal towards the tail end of it. Maybe some people are not getting active enough, right? But seems like OU is still in the mix for a lot of different things that are going on. I think a lot of people are really excited with what the product will be. We got definitely got some news to talk about. We got some returns. We got potential targets. Um, Seems like tomorrow is pretty much the race to the finish line to see who can get guys to either jump in the portal or get guys just to go ahead and commit. So, Chris Mason, go ahead, talk about what is first on the list.
Well, let's not bury the lead. Getting returns from Isaiah Satania, Kip Lewis, and John Mateer announced today. That's three huge returns. That's arguably your best offensive player returning. And I think arguably maybe your best defensive player returning. Although that's an argument. I think that's a bigger argument there. But and then obviously, I know there's some mixed feelings about John Mateer with some of our fan base, but obviously getting him locked in and returned. This is three big pieces. This is three starters, and I think if you need to look at it this way, if you're a little lukewarm on John Mateer, there's if John Mateer had declared pro, which I admit I thought he was going to do, and wrong on that. Um, I'm not sure, Chris, that OU is able to improve the rest of the roster on offense like they have if Satania and Mateer had gone pro.
Yeah.
I think the money you would have had to have spent at quarterback would have significantly put a dent in your ability to have upgraded the rest of the offense in the way that OU has.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that again, we've been talking about these past couple of episodes with the the keys to unlocking this offense, and I think for what you're wanting to do, presently built, and we'll get into the tight end situation. But I think with those tight ends, the receivers that you went and got, all the rest of that stuff, and I think that contrary to belief, I know it wasn't the most heartwarming or spectacular display over the last 3 weeks, but I think that you did see a lot of things from Mateer that was extremely encouraging. Meaning, if he stays in a pocket, he has a clean pocket, he can do work there. He doesn't have to just do work with his legs. The guy can make it happen. I think that you went out there and you got him real weapons. And again, I think that Trail Harris is he may be an obvious upgrade from Burks and Keontez Lewis as well. I think he's a guy that can be your one at times. I think he's a guy that can be your two, but not be a fadeaway two. Somebody who's active early in the first quarter and then fades away. I think Livingston is pretty much the X factor. What kind of kid do you get from him? I think that he's going to be the safety valve for Mateer, but time will tell. But regardless, though, a lot of it really hinged upon a lot of the returns that you see now, right? And I think that OU knew this stuff, weeks and weeks ago, just never let the cat out of the bag. We're just trying to let everybody have their time to portal out, all the rest of that stuff, and they wanted to make a big splash, and I think they did with the graphics today. But Chris Mason, yeah, definitely just piggybacking off your back. I mean, off of your points, I am really, really excited about what we have. I think we have a really good product, and I think if we are healthy and we can establish a run game and our offensive line is playing the part, I'm going out on a limb and saying that we do have we championship dreams. I think we have championship reality. I think that it's a strong notion to the fact that you have a championship level team, and this is a championship window, especially this year.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, if you'd had to go into the portal and replace Kip Lewis, that again, that cost of having to get Cole Sullivan and then a linebacker like if you had to pay for Owen Long and Cole Sullivan, for instance, that's money that you may not have to spend elsewhere. So getting Kip back and getting leadership and Kip's leadership and his energy back on that defense, I'm not sure that really any linebacker we could have got in the portal would be as productive as Kip next year. I mean, let's just call it what it is, right?
Mhm.
That Kip's experience in the defense, the energy and leadership he brings, the intangibles he's bringing, you can't really put a price on. And bringing that leader back for for the defense, it's bigger than any portal acquisition I think we could have made at linebacker.
Yeah, no, last year we talked about it. Retention was probably the best thing that happened with this roster last year, and I think this year, those were three key pieces of what we're trying to build here. I don't think that they're done. It seems like every single day you and I text. There seems to be, three or four kids that have snuck on campus that we were just like, wait a minute, what? Right? So we'll get into that here in a second. But at the same time, I think that there's still more to come as far as just additions or whatnot that they're going to make. But Chris Mason, I will say with the linebacker room with Kip coming back, obviously you feel great about that. Nobody knows what's going on with the Heineke situation. You just lost Kobe to Northwestern. You lost Sammy O to UCLA. So the question is, obviously, they believe in their room with, the Marcus James of the world, the Cole Sullivan, obviously, but not just excluding Cole Sullivan from the situation. We know that he's going to be in that rotation for sure, heavy, right?
Right.
But Nesta, Marcus James, I mean, kind of, obviously those are two names that you got to be looking out for in particular right now, probably Nesta, but what other moves do you do? Because nobody knows what's going to happen with Owen Heineke. I think that's the question right now.
Yeah, I think James Nesta is a guy that they believe. We're going to talk about this on a podcast moving forward, but we're going to come up with some Taylor Wine preseason award candidates, and right off the bat, James Nesta is one of those guys. It's year 3. The linebacker room is cleared of the seniors who were kind of keeping him, juniors, seniors who were kind of keeping him off the field. Athletically, he's as good as anybody OU's had in a while. He's 6'3", 230, 235, and I think he's gonna be that guy. The wild card, I think, could be Taylor Heim. Is he used at Cheetah? Is he used at will linebacker? Where do you go? Obviously, that's kind of a wild card. Marcus James physically is a freak. I mean, this is, if you remember the dunk contest where Elijah Thomas and CJ Nixon were doing windmill tomahawk dunks. Well, Marcus James was right there doing that with them. If he's healthy and after his redshirt year and can pick the defense up and give you some quality reps at linebacker, that's in the mix. I honestly think, Chris, from the freshman class, I think Caleb Curry, the will linebacker prospect from Florida, I think he could legitimately help OU this year. As well as Nico Jandro could help at Cheetah, which maybe allows you to play Taylor Heim more at will linebacker. So there's a lot of moving pieces there. But obviously, the manna from heaven we're looking for is the NCAA deciding to go give Heineke an extra year. And then you roll with a threesome that might be as good as any linebacker threesome in the SEC with Owen Heineke and Kip as your starting backers, Cole Sullivan, and then James Nesta rolling into that mix, and then you've got yourself a bridge there. But yeah, I think we George Stoyer brought this up on one of their Sooner Scoop pods, and it was like last year we were all concerned about linebacker depth, we were concerned about defensive end depth, and we were concerned about cornerback depth. Post spring, we were wondering who are going to be the guys, what's going to happen here, and then well, everyone says Taylor Wine's going to be good. And like, well, we haven't really seen anything from Taylor Wine other than a double personal foul against I think it was Kent State.
Yeah.
So it tends to be on defense. It tends to be Chris third year players kind of break out, right? We've seen that kind of the last 2 years, right? Third year players kind of get going in this defense. So we've got some guys that fit that category that I think could help on the depth side of things. I know some folks are concerned that our depth's taking a hit overall with the loss of Devin Jordan, Samo, Devin Jordan, and then Marcus Strong. I think to kind of ID three guys, you're like, if in an ideal world you have those three guys back, right? And that bucket
Yeah.
is
The funny thing about it is that how much does Day Jordan play with if Newcomb is actually healthy, right? I think that's kind
yep.
of the wrench that you throw in there. There's a couple of freshmen that we think could potentially crack that spot, and then nobody knows what the hell that you're getting in this Oregon kid. You could be getting somebody who could potentially cause
Yeah.
a lot of problems in that room for a lot of people if because it's a low risk high reward type situation there, and there's a bunch of those, right? But Marcus Strong is probably the one out of all of them who you're just sitting there like third year or whatever you feel like okay, he was going to take that step, going to take that leap, whatever the case may be. But I think that you're able to kind of plug and play with that because you're expecting to get a lot of production from Stoney and Jackson. But at the same time, again, people, I do believe that Nigel Smith is on his way. I think that he's going to deliver this year. I think that you'll see Trent Wilson. I think you're going to see a number of guys. So we'll see how that pans out. I'm so excited for these camps to start. Can't wait to start getting these notes and for us to transition into talking about that. But Chris Mason, let's go ahead and well, no, yeah, let's
You
go
want to
ahead and move
transition
on.
to the visitors today?
Let's go ahead and transition to the visitors.
Yeah. Okay. So two visitors today. Today was the first day on-site visits could occur. There was a dead period Monday through Wednesday. So the first name that broke was cornerback from Emporia State. His name's Peyton Taylor. He's listed at 5'11", 175 pounds. He totaled 64 tackles, 19 pass breakups, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 interception. He has 2 years to play. Clemson and Arkansas also won him. So he was on campus today. Again, he would be a depth piece. He would be a rotation piece. And he's got 2 years to play. So that could also be a big piece for that could be a depth piece for OU. That could be your Devin Jordan kind of replacement, right? He's a junior. From that aspect, he could be a key piece there. I think the fact I said he's already visited Clemson. I think Arkansas and Auburn also want him to come to town. So he's got some attention to him. He's from Emporia State. Which, if I remember right, is Leon Lett's former college, Dallas Cowboy from the Jimmy Johnson era for those older folks on chat. But that's Kansas, right? So I'm guessing maybe Nate Dreiling and BV kind of have some hooks and connections there that maybe will help OU with this.
Yeah, don't the MIAA right now. I mean, UCO and all the rest of them are going crazy right now, as far as that is concerned. But yeah, no, that again, this is just very characteristic of what you're seeing with uh this whole Venables regime, especially now with the Nagy effect happening, right? They're kicking tires on guys that they're just like, hey, we can have developmental pieces. I was talking to my uncle about the whole 105 thing, and he was saying, his thoughts are, potentially, okay, well, how about this? How about you just turn those last 20 scholarships? Yeah, they get the scholarships or whatever, but you're kicking the tires on a whole bunch of like developmental pieces, right? I don't think anybody's necessarily expecting, a D2 player to come in right away at cornerback for us and do something. But then, you got all the Fair State kids that are about to, basically come in everywhere across college football. You have, obviously you saw Trinidad Chambers. I know these are two different positions, but just saying, if it translates, it translates. So I think you're just basically trying to go and find NFL quality guys to fill out this roster, So yeah.
Yeah, so that's the cornerback. And then the bigger news of the day is on Tuesday, Jack Van Dorselaer from Tennessee hit the portal. And that kind of, I sent Chris a note on that. I kind of said, okay, maybe just something to keep an eye on here because he's from South Lake Carroll in Texas, in the Dallas area. He was highly recruited out of high school. He was a four-star recruit, ranked as high as the number 5 tight end in the country, depending upon who was doing the ranking out of high school. He played a lot of snaps for the Vols this year, and he was on campus today. He was they're primarily their backup tight end, but he's a pretty good blocker. He is also his high school footage is very good. He's a very good blocker, physical blocker, but also an excellent receiver. He's 6'5", 235, 240. And basically, Chris, there's I don't think there's any way Jack, was unaware of Jason Witten or Jason Witten was unaware of this kid during his high school run,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Jason's coaching high school football in the Dallas area. He's Jason Witten. For a kid in the Dallas area playing tight end, I don't think there's any chance he didn't know who Jason Witten was. Jason obviously was all over coach camps and things like that. So I don't think there's any way Witten didn't run across Jack during his high school time. And then, of course, Jack went to Tennessee, Witten's alma mater. So I'm guessing I'm guessing Witten knows the South Lake Carroll coaches because of their whole high school coaching connection. So there's just lots of connection points here that make it seem like that Witten probably ran into Jack at some point. So beyond that, I don't know how Jack got into the portal and got to OU first thing Thursday morning. So we'll just leave that out that Jack saw the announcement that OU was getting Jason Witten, and he decided, well, maybe I'll put my name in the portal and see what's going on. Also, Tennessee has another tight end in the same class, the Brain kid from Kansas. So maybe Dorselaer is like, well, maybe I want to go somewhere else where I can be, tight end number 1 in the class. So he hit the portal. He's on campus, and there's already. Jason will tell you that in our back room, my sources have been telling me that he had a fantastic visit to Norman, and OU is trying to close this deal, and there are already predictions that they're going to do that.
Yeah.
So this would be. I kept mentioning that OU wanted to look for a third tight end, and that I was kind of wondering if they were going to wait until the new coach was hired and let the new coach try and find a guy he liked. And it's hard not to paint some connections between Van Dorselaer and Jason Witten.
Now we get that, Chris Mason. Height, size, what's going on with that?
6'5", 235, 240. Lean frame, easily could be 245, 250. Good receiver. And there is really strong blocking footage from him. And I watched his high school tape, Chris, and he's crushing folks. He's hitting folks, but he's also a good receiver, good speed. This is a true two-way tight end that will give us a first real indication, I think, along with Tyler Ruxer, what Jason Witten can do in terms of developing guys.
And here's the thing.
And I'm sorry, he has 3 years to play.
This is what I'll say right here. I think there's a certain type, right? It seems like Nagy and crew kind of have a certain type of tight end that they want, right? With all due respect, we love Kenny. We love what Kenny gave us. Fan favorite. He got it done whenever he was given the opportunity. He went in there and he gave his max effort, right? Caden Helms loved it on that side of blocking. couldn't ask really for much more given the roster that we have. But I think these guys now, all three of them, with Hanson, Beers, and this kid now, they can stay healthy. This could be a nice little trio that you can have to go out there and get into some different sets. Remember, around the goal line, he loves to use his tight ends. He likes to go heavy personnel, but we weren't able to do that this year. We tried, but we couldn't get any push. You know, we try to run at the edges with our tight ends and stuff like that, and leave them on islands and stuff. And we ran some, we, we try to run a whole bunch of stuff, and it just didn't work. A lot of split zone stuff like that. It's just you can't necessarily do it because you don't have necessarily blocking tight ends. I think also another thing is the simple fact that Kamek is only 6'2", right? So that's another thing. Being a 6'2", tight end, yes, the speed, all the rest of that stuff was there whenever he was given the opportunity. We know that, but again, I think these guys are going to be able to unlock some things that we just weren't able to do this past year. So, yeah,
I mean, three tight ends. You've got 6'7", 270-pound Hayden Hanson,
yeah,
Rocky Beers, who's 6'5", 250. And then you've got this kid who could easily be 6'5", 250 by the time he plays a football game for OU in the fall. And then that means you've got multiple tight end sets. You've got depth at tight end. And let's just face it. Hayden Hanson played 32 games. Maybe I think he has like 36 starts in the SEC. None of our tight ends were really SEC tight ends the last 2 years. None of the guys. I mean, Bauer Sharp went to LSU and was as effective there as he was in Norman. So it wasn't just the disorganized offense we had here. He's just not physically up for playing tight end in the SEC. And if nothing else, Hayden Hanson, is a good blocking tight end. He's a big guy. He can handle defensive ends in the SEC. He blocked Colin Simmons. He blocked Trey Moore. He's blocked everybody, and he buried Texas's defensive ends in that game. And there's lots of footage of him doing it to other guys. So really, from that perspective, he upgrades it. Rocky Beers brings a lot in terms of being a two-way tight end. He's a good receiver at Colorado State. He's a big kid. He's physical. He scored 7 touchdowns last year, and then you bring in your development guy, your guy that is ready to after a freshman year playing a lot of football for Tennessee, blocking a lot of guys. You got a guy who is SEC capable, playing in the SEC, and then you bring him in, and you can make him, maybe your top receiving tight end threat, or behind Beers. He has a chance to work with Beers and Hanson, allowing our younger guys a chance to not be just thrown to the wolves completely
yeah.
this fall.
If we get him, I will love it. The more the merrier. And I think if healthy, Rocky Beers could be a problem in this offense. I think he could be your receiving threat in this offense. That he's somebody who can add. But I think all three can catch. Looking at the film, definitely watching that that breakdown of Hanson, I was like, oh, he can catch.
Oh yeah, they just didn't throw him the ball.
Yeah.
It's we'll see what this will do for our running game. Also our pass protect. Hayden Hanson is a weapon you can use to do some different pass pro stuff to give Mateer a better pocket. So, but also, Caden Helms did the best he could on completely reconstructed knee, and he was 235 pounds.
Yeah.
And he did the best he could. We've now got 3 tight ends bigger than him and more athletic than him. I mean, I'm hoping he regains some of his speed next year at Minnesota. Maybe he puts on some more weight and he can get to 250. And now that he's finally not in a rehab year, maybe he can have a developmental year. But OU can't bank on any of that, right? OU couldn't really bank on that. Cade McIntyre hasn't hit the portal. I don't know where that situation is going, but I have a hard time expecting him to see the field when he's 6'3", 230. He's been beaten up so much, and even Trinae Washington's bigger than him at 6'5", 240. And Tyler Ruxler comes in with a much better receiving skill set. Even as a light, flexed out tight end, he's taller, probably bigger, faster, and a much more accomplished receiver. So we've just got to, Chris, we go in with like, you know, I'm going to use this. I don't want to, I'm going to be a little cold here again. You guys, you're always making fun of me for being cold. I mean, Chris, it looks like we go from the island of misfit toys at tight end to actual SEC to three actual SEC level tight ends.
Hey, you know, that's what you want in this day and age, is just to upgrade the roster, and I think that you did there. So, Chris Mason, were there anybody else? Was there anybody else that that popped on campus?
No, but it just popped that OU has offered from UAB. So the pieces left, right, are they want another offensive lineman.
Speaking of that, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'll be right back, but I do want to get your thoughts. You can go now. I can hear you, but Peyton Joseph, what happened to that?
Well, he committed. He's part of the. He's signed with OU.
Oh,
He's signed with OU. That's all good, and that's a huge. That's one of those you track that story 2 years down the road, and all of a sudden you're like, I didn't pay much attention when OU picked him up, and now that kid is playing at an elite level from a certain perspective. So you know. So that he's part of the O line class. So OU just offered it, just kind of blew up on Twitter here while we were talking, and I actually got to it before Boomer 580 posted it. Maybe he's not in here tonight. So OU just offered from UAB Brandon Snay. He is a 6'6", 312-pound tackle, 85-inch wingspan, and he's got 1 year of eligibility. But OU just offered him. So that could be the swing tackle depth that OU's trying to bring in to just complete what they're doing. So, you can find offensive linemen from all kinds of programs that really didn't have great football this year. Like Wake Forest, for instance. You could pay a lot of money for a Wake Forest offensive tackle who may or may not be any good in the SEC. Really, considering how bad Wake Forest was this year, not really that much better than UAB. UAB, I'm pretty sure UAB beat Tulane, didn't they? I think they did. So they're in the college football playoff, which certainly Wake Forest wasn't in. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy. OU obviously offered him. They're looking for one O lineman in the portal, Chris. They're looking for a safety. Well, thievery. It's my show. Shut the f up. They're looking for one safety. Probably there's a JUCO guy called Aaron Edwards who's interesting. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's from the Oklahoma City area, I think. He looks kind of interesting. Okay, okay, Bevo Bodyguard. Go tell it to a Texas recruiting show.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
They're over here. They're trying.
So, yeah. So, but from that perspective, so he's, so I think that's what they want. They want a safety. This Aaron Edwards kid could be somebody they pick up. He's a JUCO guy. Wouldn't be available to the summer, but he hits, and he hits like a madman. Like he could be a cheetah guy that you could bring in for some depth. Linebacker. Brent Venables started following a linebacker from Montana State who had 77 tackles last year and was super productive. His name is, let me pull his name. His name is Jared Lloyd from, Missouri State. Very, very productive last year. Brent's following him, so maybe that's a name. Maybe there's another name. If OU knows that Owen's not going, I think you might see somebody. You might get somebody from. You might see somebody enter the portal that OU quickly gets on campus and quickly signs.
Yeah,
So,
that's that was the next question I was going to ask was what's going on with linebacker. I think linebacker, and I've been interested in running back the whole time, but those two spots. But go with linebacker first. What's going on there?
Well, like I said, they're following. There's no offers out there right now, and no visitors right now. But I think OU is kicking the tires in terms of contacting and tracking some guys. So we'll see. You know, we'll see about that. We'll see what happens with that situation. But I think OU again is stuck in: do you just go with our young kids, or do you add one more veteran as a bridge to get us through next year if you lose Heineke?
I think you got to play the safe route. What's going on? I think again, I'd like for you to try to at least just add one more guy from the portal in that room, just like I would like you to get up to six guys in the running back room by adding one more running back from the portal. Is there any news there, or you think that they're done?
I mean, Chris, I've not heard anything at running back. I mean, there's no running backs being followed. There's no noise at anything about any running back. You know, the Caden Durham guys, folks who kept hoping Caden Durham was going to get in a thing. You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I don't see anything right now. I know you want a sixth running back in the room. There's again, I think it's down the list of priorities, right? So
Yeah.
if they could have if they get the two kids that visited today, that crosses off cornerback and that crosses off tight end. The tight end rooms are done, right? If they can get another offensive lineman in, that just gets rid of those guys. That gets offensive line done. If this Sneh kid, if that's how you pronounce his last name, Sneh, if he comes in and he fits what they want to look at in terms of being a bridge tackle depth piece for the room, then you check that off, and then then you look at safety, and then you look at linebacker, and then you look at, and I think if you could figure those pieces out, if the Aaron Edwards kid works out at safety, maybe you do that because they're following him. And if they can get the linebacker piece in, or you get Owen gets his waiver, then maybe you can roll back and then you can look at a running back. So, okay, that's a good question. I don't have any news on that. I always believed OU signed him to a 2-year deal when he enrolled, and that deal was what maybe OU restructured. I don't know if they restructured that. I don't know that OU redid his deal. I think he's pretty much returning with the same deal he had last year. But there's no news on that one way or the other that indicates something different there. So I don't know. But obviously OU was able to structure a deal with him for 2 years, which isn't reflective of the massive pay increase. The massive pay increase that has gone on in the QB market this year. So OU has saved money by whatever deal they did with Mateer there. So it's unclear. Trojan Fight has a high school football question. All right. So
That's a good question.
it's a good question. And so Trojan Fight on my podcast that I do that covers OU recruiting news, high school news primarily. I talked about this topic on my pod. You can find it on YouTube, but I'll give you the short element of it. OU's kind of in a dilemma here if Houston decommits, and I think he's gonna decommit from LSU. The Longstreet acquisition, I think, puts and Kiffin. I don't think he can trust Kiffin. So I think he does go on the market, but OU's got this kid in Alabama, Jamison Roberts, that they're really like in the 2027 class. So OU will kind of have a predicament as to whether to go back in all in with Houston or maybe focus on this Bama kid. But
I was just gonna say another Bentley O'Neill situation on our heels.
But these are verbal. These are verbal to us. So you have that situation. But Trojan, I can easily see Houston wanting out of LSU and calling Booby Feaster, his buddy, his best friend who's going to USC, and seeing if Lincoln Riley wants him out west. So I think it's a legitimate question. And it presents a problem for OU. I don't know everything about USC's QB recruiting picture? I know you lost the Longstreet kid who had just enrolled. I don't know if I don't know who your 27. If you have a 27 verbal,
I
if you
could have
have,
sworn they had a Longstreet kid who was, I want to say, a 5 star, but then
yep,
they got a high 4 star this portal class as well. So I think Lincoln is fine.
yeah. If Lincoln's fine, then then it goes to then OU maybe has some time to figure out what they want to do with the Jamison Roberts thing versus Peyton
Yeah, I
Houston.
mean, you would think Lincoln is fine because he's picking those quarterbacks, but it's the same dilemma that we were in just with this NIL era. I think it's something that could have happened here at OU if it wasn't for, if that era had happened back then, right? With him basically picking one quarterback, locking in on that quarterback, and then NIL being the, you know, sometimes it's going to be a bigger pitch than, hey, I can get you to the league as a number one pick. So it's the same dilemma to where, hey, that even year quarterbacks that go to, or even year high school quarterbacks that commit to Lincoln Riley are usually the ones who are, in my opinion, they usually are the ones who are on the outs, right? It seems like it's always that odd number quarterback, that odd year number quarterback that actually goes on and does something because that's the big time recruit, right?
Yeah, so I don't know where USC will zig or zag on this, but I think if Houston goes decommits from, and he's got plenty of time to figure out what he wants to do,
Yeah.
if he was to decommit from LSU, but I do think OU and USC would be two natural landing spots for him in terms of where he would like to go. Texas was somewhere in that mix. I don't really view them as being a player in that. That could change. I think they already have a 2027 guy verbaled, or they've got someone that they're heavily looking at. But it could be somebody for both. You could have to make a decision to walk away from Peyton Houston and go all in with Jamison Roberts a little faster than they thought, or you know, or they have it, or they'll have to think about whether they want to jump back in with Houston. But his heart was with LSU,
This is real. Go ahead.
and but bringing in this Hussein Longstreet and any of the promises he got from Brian Kelly and those guys about how they were going to manage quarterback recruiting is out the window. Yeah, you believe Lane Kiffin at your own peril in terms of what he's doing. So it's clear that Lane thinks he's.
That's a great point, Chris Mason. But on the other hand, I think the heart of what he's saying here is that, hey, regardless of the situation, he wants to play. Every Louisiana kid growing up wants to play for LSU. I mean, no matter who the coach is, no matter what's going on there, everybody wants to play for LSU. I know the kid this day and age wants to go make the most money he can, and he wants to play and be the star QB and all the rest of that stuff. But it means something to Louisiana kids playing for LSU. So you do run the risk of potentially, that happening. But, again, like I was telling you the other day, me and my uncle were talking about this, and we said, hey, same thing. You can say the same thing for the Robertson kid down there in Bama. Who's not to say that Bama doesn't circle back? Yeah, Bama may have somebody in their class now, but let's say that kid flops and or whatever, he goes somewhere else, and he flips his commit or whatever the case may be to somewhere else, and then Bama tries to go and kick the tires. And who's not to say that new regime, new everything down there at Auburn, what do they do? So you can say that for both kids, but I mean, with this one right here, it's just the fact that Louisiana kids want to play at LSU.
Yeah, you just wonder if he decommits. I think Michael Neal has a great point. Could he flip back to them? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's if you get spurned and you don't trust LSU and you don't trust them enough from that standpoint. Do you trust them? If you distrust them enough to decommit, does that break that aura of LSU? And that Lane has created that level of distrust that you're not ready to move on. You're ready to move on an OU who's been more of a stable position with Arbuckle with him, heavily with him for a whole year. It's the 2027 QB thing is an interesting story to to follow from a high school recruiting perspective. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think it wouldn't shock me if he decommitted from LSU and turned around and immediately committed to USC to just end that thought Trojan fight, that he just decides he's going to go, that Lincoln says, yeah, come on down, and he decides to go out to LA with his buddy, the wide receiver in this class, in the 26 class, Booby Feaster.
All right. Chris Mason, you got anything else for us?
I'm just checking to see what else has gone. The Brandon Snay thing is the biggest thing in terms of the newest guys they're looking at. I do want to say something. Chris, basically, the tight end got into campus. The Tennessee tight end, Van Dorselaer, got on the campus very quietly. He was basically like, oh, you might be interested in him. And then he's like, oh, he's on campus. So it does look like Nagy is in like double stealth mode, trying to make sure the guys he brings in, the cornerback from Imperial State, there was nothing on him before he came in. It does look like he's trying to bring in guys in this final push as quietly as possible to not tip off other schools about OU's level of interest in some kids. So it looks like that is definitely going on from that perspective. And we'll see. But OU's probably going to add a couple more pieces. Looks like Sawchuk was in Illinois, was in Champaign.
That's interesting.
So he was with the Illinois today, I think.
Guys, I know y'all keep asking about Seton.
It's millions of dollars. He's in Mississippi State to visit Lode Holt, and then after that, I think he's probably looks like Texas spent a lot of money on this Wake Forest offensive tackle, and now they have the kid from Melissa, Texas, whose name I forget, the tall kid, Goolsby, I think is his name, or Goolsby. And they've got this Wake Forest.
I'll be honest with you. The Seton things in Miami, to me, I think that's Miami's to lose.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. But they have the Cantrell kid, the number 1 offensive lineman for 2026, who's enrolling in January, and they spent a bunch of money on him. So he's a left tackle. He's 6'7", 315. His parents were both Olympic shot putters. He was interested in OU at one point, so that's interesting. Oregon's got the big kid, Ian Nacho, coming in. So maybe it's LSU. Trojan fight. So you think Oregon and LSU? That's not a bad read. But Oregon has the Nacho kid coming in. I'm not sure who their other tackle is. Is the Worlds kid? The transfer from Nevada, Worlds, is he one and done? So it could be Oregon. But, Chris, I really expect him at LSU, right? That's where the swag is. That's where the hype's going to be. And LSU dumped their entire offensive line and desperately needs a right or left tackle. So I thought Miami, but they've got the Samson Okanola at one tackle. He's a kid from Connecticut that OU was trying to recruit at one point. Then they got the Cantrell kid that they spent a lot of money in from a high school standpoint. So who knows? It could be. I thought Miami initially, but they got a lot of money invested in those 2 high school tackles in a similar way that OU has a lot of money invested in Fasusi and Foji, and that didn't make any sense for Seton to come in, not with the money that OU spent on Amari and Harris and some other places. Plus, I don't know. It's Cherokee. You think Miami? We'll see. But when you're dealing with Seton, you're dealing with a guy that he used the Colorado video department to record his video going on the portal because the video department thought it was his video that he was going to use to stay. So Seton worked everybody on signing day. He verbaled to 3 places. He jumped around. So Seton is most definitely someone who is taking full advantage of NIL. And you notice he delayed coming in to make sure he was catching everybody as desperate as possible.
Yeah. All right. Well, people, we
That,
got your little seating news on top of all the OU stuff. We got 92 people in here, maybe a little bit more. Actually, those numbers are always they're either right or wrong, right? Either way, guys, that's been recruiting intel. Like and subscribe to the channels, like the video, do all those different things. If any other news pops, we will try to be back as soon as we possibly can. Chris Mason, any parting thoughts as far as bringing back Mateer and those guys?
well, just one quick scheduling announcement, guys. We're going to skip the Monday night recruiting pod, and we're going to try. I'm going to try and coordinate with Chris and see if we can do something Sunday night because it's the national championship game. We just want to sit down and watch that and not have to do a live stream for an hour during the national championship game on Monday night. So we're going to move that to either Sunday or Tuesday. Just keep an eye out on Twitter. From if you're following me on Twitter, I'll make an announcement on Twitter about what we're going to do. But we'll be back. We'll have content for you guys either Sunday or Tuesday, depending upon how the portal action goes over the weekend. But I think when you think about if OU had lost Mateer, they'd lost Kip, and they'd lost Satania, I don't think OU could have made the overall wide sweeping upgrades and depth additions that they did. I mean, it
No.
would have been a massive portion, of OU's NIL budget if they had to do that. Since we have Texas fans in here, if you had lost Colin Simmons, Arch, and Wingo to the portal, that would have taken a big dent out of your NIL money. So that's essentially what OU got back. So I think that we can't overlook what OU was able to retain and sign from the starting 11 that they have. Chris, for the most part, you look at the starting 11 OU is projected to have for the year, and OU's upgraded the two weakest areas on the roster, and was able to retain the bulk of the guys that they think are going to be playmakers from next year, especially on defense.
All right. Well, people, again, like and subscribe. Check out our sponsor, Kaiser Performance. Do all those things for all three channels. Again, we'll see you